Hey, this is Dave Nalette. I'm so glad that you're interested in our Seeing Jesus More Clearly Bible studies. There is always something good going on here. If you want to learn more about the ministry, you can do so. Go into our website, bygraceinternational.com, and maybe you want to support what we're doing financially. If you'd like to be a part of that, you can go there as well, bygraceinternational.com/give. Thanks. Welcome to week 3 of our Advent series here in 2022. And, for those of you who have been with us so far, hopefully this has been something that's been encouraging you, and you've been preparing your hearts for the Christmas season, for the celebration of the coming of Jesus. And for those of you like me who maybe haven't grown up in this tradition where maybe you went to church. I know, I was a pastor's kid, and I was there every week, whether I wanted to be there or not. It was one of those things where we were always there, but we never really celebrated things on the church calendar. We weren't really too interested in the history of various things. It was Thanksgiving's here, so I guess we'll celebrate Jesus now, and so we just started off. But there's a beauty in this Advent tradition, and so we're in week 3, and we've been seeing here throughout the last 2 weeks that there's this waiting, this sense of longing that's building for the Messiah to come, for the Messiah to set all things right, and last week we saw that in this time of waiting, the Bible actually gives us the various pieces that we are to look for to see the Messiah. And as we get closer and closer, we see this sense of waiting continue to build. We're almost there. It's like we're if you've ever seen either cartoon or real life, footage of like a dam collapse, right? So you've got the water, and it's behind this wall, and it's just pushing out. I'm thinking of the scene in the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeves and what was her name? I don't remember the actress's name now. Normally I can come up with those off the top of my head, but so they're there, and she dies, and this whole series of things happen, and you see the water beginning to there's this, I believe it's the Hoover Dam in the video, and you see the water beginning to push against the wall of the Hoover Dam, and little cracks starting to form, and little trickles come out until all of a sudden the entire wall collapses. And that's kind of this picture that I have here in this waiting season, that we're pushing against the wall, ready to burst, and all of a sudden the wall's gonna collapse, and we're in there. The book of Romans, it tells us that the earth itself is groaning. It's waiting for the children of God to be revealed, for the Son of God to be revealed, for this what Jesus came to bring to the earth to be fully revealed, for humanity to live in the fullness that God designed us to live. This is what the earth is waiting for. And I thought of this today. What better way for God to be revealed than in a newborn child? And you might think to yourself, well, isn't that a little odd? Well, on the surface, maybe we think of God as omnipotent and omnipresent and all these other things, and I'm not disputing any of those. But what I am saying is, when you see a God in the Scripture whose main goal, main purpose seems to be not only to lift us up, to bring humanity to the state of being right with Him, restoring everything that was lost, but you also see the God who is interested in inverting our systems, flipping them on their heads, turning things upside down. And so when we associate power with kings and kingdoms and queens and presidents and senators, ambassadors, all these other things, what better way for God to subvert our power structures, right? To come in to reveal God's self as a newborn child. I mean, it's fascinating when you think of it. But let's look at our readings from today. They're taken from the Revised Common Lectionary. Those of you who are familiar with the church calendar should be familiar with them. But I want to look at a few verses here that this brings out. And for those of you who say, well, what's a lectionary? That's a big word. I didn't know what it was either. It's a book that goes through various prayers and scriptures that were to be read each week at church gatherings throughout church history. And the purpose of it is to teach people the stories. Remember, throughout most of human history, people couldn't read. We didn't have education like we do today. And so, the ability to read these texts were lost on us. And so, these people came up with this way where we would learn the gospel stories. We would learn about Jesus. We would learn about all of these things. And, we'd go through, I believe it goes through the gospels once every 3 years, the synoptic gospels. And it was something these would be the verses that are read in services. And so, I want to just kind of go through this. We're just going to pull out 3 of these passages today. Isaiah chapter 35, verse 1 is the first. And I want you to get this picture that there's this anticipation of the earth here. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. The glory of Lebanon shall be given to it, the majesty of Carmel and Sharon. They shall see the glory of the Lord, the majesty of our God. Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who are of a fearful heart, be strong, do not fear. Here is your God. He will come with vengeance, with terrible recompense. He will come and save you. Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless shall sing for joy. For waters will break forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. The haunt of jackals shall become a swamp. The grass shall become reeds and rushes. A highway shall be there, and it shall be called the Holy Way. The unclean shall not travel on it, for it shall be God's people. No traveler, not even fools, shall go astray. No lion shall be there, nor shall any ravenous beast come upon it. They shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And in looking at this verse, I want to draw attention to this pattern that's being built here, right? This is showing us that the world is in desperate need of the Christ to come, of the Messiah to come, right? This is a dry and weary land, a thirsty land, and what does dry land need? It needs water. Well, the water of Jesus, the water of the Christ to come and to set things right. And if you've ever done any sort of, gardening or anything like that. I'm here in Texas, and I didn't always live here. I grew up in Connecticut for most of my life, but they've got a lot of droughts down here in Texas, and so the ground gets dry and cracked and hard. And what happens when this goes on, you would think, right? You would think that when something is so dry, it's going to be like a sponge, and it's going to suck up every ounce of water it can get. But no, in reality, when the land is so dry and so just completely dried out, there's nothing left in it, no moisture whatsoever. You can use it like chalk if you're going to grab something, you're all sweaty and dry your hands off there. You can't just pour a bunch of water on it and hope it happens. You have to soak it, right? It's got to be a low, slow soak where you're just permeating the water or the ground with water, just slowly beginning to add water and letting it drink what it's able to drink until finally it's able to take the water in full. And this is kind of this picture here that I see. We see this, there's this sense of weariness. We're waiting for the water, the saving water of the Spirit through Jesus, and we're getting ready to drink it up, but there's got to be that period first, right, where you ramp it up. But then we also see that God will come and save. Notice that there's no qualifications or conditions on it. This is one of the passages in Isaiah that's referring to the Messiah, and again, God will come and save. it also talks about, that God's gonna change some things. The King James says that God's gonna come with vengeance to make things right. If you look that up, really, we think of vengeance as like, God's angry with the world, right? God's angry with, and you're gonna get what's coming to you one of these days, and you better watch out, But no, really, it's the retribution for things that were wrongfully done, not retribution in a punitive sense. God is not interested in punishment. God is not interested in smiting those who have acted unjustly. We see it in the story of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a wee little man was he. We see it in the story of Zacchaeus, where Zacchaeus, Jesus didn't come here and smite Zacchaeus and say, Zacchaeus, you better give back every ounce that you stole from people. No, he just showed him love and grace, and the recompense, right? And the vengeance of God isn't, Jesus saying, Zacchaeus, you better pay this back or else. It's Zacchaeus saying, everything that I've taken, I'm gonna give back, and if I've stolen from anybody, I'm going to pay him back fourfold. This is the vengeance of God. This is God coming to fiercely right all things that are wrong. And then I love this verse. Let's look at this one more time. This one part right here. The unclean shall not travel on it. A highway shall be there, verse 8. It shall be called the holy way. The unclean shall not travel on it, but it shall be for God's people. No traveler, not even fools, go astray. No lion shall be there, nor any ravenous beast come upon it. They shall not be found there, but the redeemed shall walk there. And so we've got God coming to fiercely right every wrong. Let's look over at the book of James, if you will. James chapter 5. This is another passage from this week's readings here. James 5, verse 7. Be patient, therefore, beloved, until the coming of the Lord. How appropriate in this season of waiting for the Christ, for the Messiah to come. Be patient, therefore, brethren. Be patient, therefore, beloved, until the coming of the Lord. The farmer waits for the precious crop of the earth, being patient with it until it receives the early and the late rains. You must also be patient. Strengthen your heart, for the coming of the Lord is near. Beloved, do not grumble against one another, so that you may not be judged. See, the judge is standing at the doors. As an example of suffering and patience, beloved, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. And so we see again this picture of Jesus or the world before Jesus comes. And yes, this is speaking of the return of Jesus is what it appears that James was writing about. But we see Jesus, this picture being painted of this anticipation for the arrival of Christ. What the idea that I got here is not just this be patient, but this is the 11th hour. Don't lose heart. This is the time. Right before Jesus returns, there's that saying that it's always darkest before the dawn, and this is that time. It's like the Cowboys the other week when they were playing the Houston Texans, who had no business being on the same field as them, and then all of a sudden it was Cowboys were just making mistakes left and right, and 2 minutes left on the clock, and Cowboys get the ball on their own 2-yard line. It is pretty dark. They've got to score to win. But all of a sudden, Dak Prescott pulls it out. It's the fourth quarter, the 2-minute warning. It's time for the game-winning drive. Don't lose heart. This is this idea here to hold on for everything you got until Jesus makes his marvelous appearance. And then Luke 1. Let's look over here, and this will be our last verse. But Luke 1, and I'm excited about this. I've never heard this verse preached, and those of you who come from some more liturgical traditions might be thinking to yourselves like, well, what do you mean you never heard this verse preached? Of course you've heard it preached. This is what we preach. I never heard it preached in my circles. And it's such a powerful passage. This is Mary, the mother of Jesus. While she's pregnant with Jesus, she's visiting her cousin Elizabeth, right? And Elizabeth, if you recall, is also pregnant with John. And so they have this whole conversation. And then Mary breaks into song, and she says in Luke 1:46, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. For he's looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely from now all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name." His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He's scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He's brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He's filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He's helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and his descendants forever. And you know, this passage is just it's referred to as the Magnificat, and this is Mary speaking of God returning to restore order to all things, of God making all things right. He's you know, we've flipped everything over in search of trying to make everything work the way that we think it should. And you know, we have this idea that, you know, in the church, women are second-class citizens and less than because of the fall. We don't stop and think for a second. This is the fallen nature, the fallen ideology. The true return to God's design is God created people equal in his image, human beings. God created humans in his image, in his likeness. We're all made in the image of God. It doesn't matter who you are. You have been made in God's image. God is setting things right. This is what Mary is speaking of. God is bringing those who exalt themselves down. One translation refers to it says that he's cast down the mighty, and I'm reminded of this is a meme I saw last year as I was just starting to read this and really grasp what this passage was saying for the first time. If you've ever seen the show Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there's this police captain by the name of Raymond Holt, and he's just very, very deadpan. Very serious, very professional, like perfunct. I don't know if is that a word? Precise in his language, his verbiage, things like this. And so he's there, and he's, you know, they're having a party, and everybody's just kind of standing around looking, and he says, "Why is no one having a good time, or why is no one having any fun? I specifically requested it." And somebody had taken, you know, with the meme, and they had replaced it with the text here from the Magnificat, and it said, "Why is no one casting down the mighty? I specifically requested it." And that's what I think of, you know, like if Mary could see us now, right? If Mary could speak to the church today, it would be, "Why is no one casting down the mighty? I specifically requested it." You know, because God isn't interested in our predefined, pre-built societal structures. God is interested in exalting the lowly, in inverting the order. If you want to look for Jesus, look for those on the margins and on the outcast of society. If you want to look for Jesus, don't look for those in power. Look for those who are desperate for God. Those who have to break through hell on earth in order to find a relationship with the Creator. Those are the people that God exalts. For everyone, remember the verse, everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself, the person that humbles themselves shall be exalted. And we tend to think of this again as punishment, as like one-upmanship or whatever, upsmanship, whatever the case might be. But God isn't doing it that way. This is God correcting wrongs, taking things that are wrong, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make them right. You know, don't use religion, don't use my name, don't use my authority, don't use my power to oppress people. Absolutely not. We're gonna cast that down. Those who are being oppressed by that system, we're going to raise them up. We're going to raise up the oppressed. We're going to lift up those who are in danger, those who are hurting, those who have been cast out and discarded by the church, those who have been kicked aside and you know, told that, you know, well, you can't darken the door of a church door, you know, a church any longer unless you change all these things about you. And God forbid. Mary was talking about casting down the mighty. Those who are oppressed, we should be exalting, right? This is the what Mary spoke of Jesus, what he would bring, that he would exalt those who were oppressed. That the oppressed one should be exalted, and yet we seem to have lost this in the church. You know, we think of our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community and how the church has gone after them and oppressed them. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for any role that I've played in that. For the role that those people, you know, people I know have played in it, because it's not right. It's not right. And people might say, well, you know, you're making excuses for sin and this, that. No. I'm not commenting on sin or lack thereof. I'm saying that if I'm going to err in any way, I'm going to err on the side of grace. I'm going to show love. I'm going to show grace. I'm going to show mercy. I'm going to show compassion. It is not up to me to judge somebody else's story because, you know, I've never been them. I don't know. But I do know that Jesus came to the earth 2,000 years ago to set all things right between humanity and God, to undo the very mechanisms of death itself, of hell itself that had held humanity entrapped and in bondage and captive for so long. And so I'm not really concerned with what goes on, what other people do. I'm concerned with how can I show love? How can I show grace? How can I show mercy? How can I reflect the character of Jesus who would stand there and call the religious elites of the day, you whitewashed tombs full of dead men's bones, you brood of vipers, but would go and hang out with the very people that they cast aside. Those are the people I want to be with, the ones that they cast aside. Those are the ones Jesus wanted to be with. If he wanted to be with them, I'm all the more interested in it. Because, you know, if you see his pattern, Jesus really didn't do a whole lot of, well, let me correct your behavior, you know, Miss Syrophoenician woman. And, you know, we got to change all these things here before you can come to me. And, you know, Miss Samaritan woman, you know, yes, we had a discussion on your theology here and, you know, all of that. But, you know, you better go marry that husband of yours or that boyfriend of yours, you know, it's the fifth one. I hope it sticks. But no, Jesus didn't do any of that. Jesus just loved him. He showed him grace, mercy, treated him like a person. And I find that when you follow that example and you treat people like people, when you treat a person like a person, something far more beautiful happens than we could ever think possible. It's breathtaking. And you know, I'm convinced that the reason we haven't looked at this much in the Western church is, if we were to do so, it would overturn the cultural and socio-political apple cart, so to speak. People who have used and weaponized God and religion and Jesus to maintain control and to tell other people how to live their lives and all these other things, that those very people would see the system crumble around them. And so for the sake of that, they've decided, no, we're not going to deal with this. We're going to go ahead and hold off and back off, and we're going to continue the pattern of oppressing in the name of God, of oppressing in the name of Jesus. And you know, Mary says that this is when Jesus comes, this is time for the end of this. He's going to cast this down. I'm not saying it's going to be here on this side of the earth, but you know, maybe on the other side of heaven, we'll see it all. We'll see it all straightened up, taken away. And as we enter into the redemption of all things, the apokatastasis of all things, this is where we see the glory of the Lord begin to shine. And so we'll pick up, you know, next week here, continuing in our series in this season, and we'll see you next week.